Picture this. It's late at night.
Oh, I know this feeling.
Right. Your phone is finally quiet. The notifications have stopped. There are no more emails to answer, no more lingering distractions.
Just total silence.
Exactly. You're just lying there staring up at the ceiling. And you aren't really thinking about anything specific, but you also, you can't seem to sleep.
Yeah, your brain is just sort of idling.
Right. And then out of nowhere, in that really still, quiet moment, a heavy question just floats up to the ceiling. You ask yourself, if I didn't exist, would it be lighter?
Wow. Yeah. It is a profound, almost chilling moment of clarity.
It really is.
And it's something a vast majority of people experience, even if they never, say it out loud for fear of worrying the people around them.
Because it does sound dangerous when you say it out loud.
It does.
But we are going to talk about it openly today, because it turns out there is a very specific mechanical reason why that particular brand of exhaustion creeps in.
Spot on.
We're doing a deep dive today into an incredibly layered Vietnamese text called Van Bun Duc Dun, which roughly translates to pasted text.
It's a phenomenal piece of writing.
It really is. It holds this brilliant blueprint for why our brains do this. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore why this specific question haunts so many of us.
And, spoiler alert, it rarely stems from some sudden massive tragedy.
Right. It is born from the sheer grinding repetition of daily life. So we're going to navigate through some heavy existential philosophy today to find a way to handle this feeling.
And to do it without relying on fake, toxic positivity.
Exactly. But before we get into it, I know you wanted to say something directly to the listener.
Yeah, I do. If you have ever felt this way, if you ever asked yourself that question in the dark, it does not mean you were weak.
No, not at all.
It doesn't mean your psychology is fundamentally broken. Philosophically speaking, it actually indicates the exact opposite.
Wait, really? The opposite?
Yeah, it means you are fully, sometimes painfully conscious. You are paying close attention to the raw reality of your situation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to look at the mechanics of where this feeling actually originates.
Let's do it.
The source material makes this really crucial distinction right away. Nobody just wakes up on a random Tuesday, completely out of the blue, and wonders if non-existence is a lighter burden.
Right, it's not a sudden strike of lightning.
Exactly, it's a slow, creeping accumulation. It's the weight of the ordinary.
The daily grind.
Yeah. It happens when one day looks absolutely identical to the day before. You have the same commute, the same baseline conversations.
The same low-level financial worries.
Yes, you haven't collapsed. To the outside world, you look highly functioning.
You're doing everything right.
But internally, the core why behind all of that functioning has just slowly evaporated.
Right, the burden itself hasn't necessarily increased in physical weight. Your job didn't get twice as hard overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
But the internal justification for carrying that weight has completely dissolved.
And that's what hurts.
Exactly. To understand why this is so painful, we have to look at how human beings process suffering. The psychologist Viktor Frankl observed something really fascinating about this.
Oh, Frankl is perfect for this.
He noted that humans have an almost terrifying capacity to endure immense suffering, provided they can clearly see the meaning or the purpose embedded in it.
Right, the why.
Yes, but the inverse is the true danger. When you remove the meaning, even the tiniest, most mundane burdens like just answering an email or making breakfast become psychologically unbearable.
I always think of it this way. The human brain is like a highly specialized, incredibly powerful, meaning-seeking engine.
I love that analogy.
As long as you feed that engine fuel, like a clear reason why you were doing something, it can pull an unbelievable amount of weight.
Yeah, it can pull you through a grueling medical residency, a painful heartbreak, or a terrible illness.
Exactly. But when that engine runs completely out of fuel, it doesn't just stop, it keeps running.
The gears keep spinning.
Right, the gears just grind against themselves without any lubrication. And that mental friction creates this very specific, localized pain of consciousness.
What's fascinating here is how the philosopher Albert Camus defined the exact nature of that grinding friction.
Oh, the absurd, right?
Yes, he called it the absurd. Now, when we hear the word absurd, we usually think of something silly or ridiculous.
Like a clown car or something.
Right. But in this context, the absurd is a mechanical failure. It is the agonizing friction between your brain's desperate biological expectation for meaning, your engine running at full speed, and the universe's quiet, indifferent refusal to provide one.
So you demand a clear narrative and the world just gives you total silence.
Exactly. That gap between expectation and reality is exactly where the exhaustion lives. In fact, Camus argued that the only truly serious philosophical question we have to answer is whether life is worth living at all.
That's a heavy way to start your day.
It is. But he believed you have to firmly answer that baseline question before you even bother worrying about your career trajectory or your moral philosophy.
I want to pause on that because the idea of needing a clear narrative connects directly to our psychological stability. Sigmund Freud argued something super similar regarding our inner needs.
Right, about our self-image.
Yeah, he said we fundamentally require a story about ourselves to stay anchored. We need a clear trajectory.
Or else we just drift.
Exactly. I think about people who spend like 10 years chasing a specific promotion, totally convinced it will validate their entire existence.
Well, I've seen this happen so many times.
Right. They finally get the title, they sit in the fancy new office, and the realization hits them that they still feel incredibly empty.
Because their psychological anchor just completely detaches in that moment.
Yeah.
The story they told themselves about how the world works and their place in it just shatters. It explains why someone with a perfectly stable job, a decent salary, and no major crises can still wake up feeling an overwhelming, crushing heaviness.
Because it's not the spreadsheets or the meetings that are crushing them.
No, it's the sudden lack of knowing who they are becoming by doing those things.
So, okay, if our brains are biologically and psychologically wired to require this meaning to function, why is modern life making it so incredibly difficult to find?
That is the million-dollar question.
I mean, are we just structurally deficient? Or is there something about the modern environment that actively starves this meaning-seeking engine? Because honestly, from where I sit, it feels like the treadmill is constantly speeding up.
You're not crazy for feeling that way. The environment plays a massive, active role in this starvation.
Okay, how so?
Well, we are largely operating within societal mechanics that are literally designed to strip away our intrinsic sense of meaning. We are frequently forced into prepackaged lives.
Right, the standard path.
Exactly. Society hands you a rhythm that isn't actually yours. The standard operating procedure is laid out. You go to school, you get the degree, you secure the job, you optimize your workflow, and you constantly strive to move in the universally agreed upon right direction.
But the critical flaw there is that nobody ever stops to ask, wait, whose direction is this? Who actually wrote this definition of success?
Karl Marx actually described this exact phenomenon through his concept of alienation.
Now, when I hear Marx and alienation, I usually picture like 19th century factory workers.
Right. Physically separated from the products they were assembling. But applied to the modern knowledge work era, alienation is much more insidious.
How does it look today?
It is the psychological experience of looking at your own life, your daily routine, your consumption habits, your career choices, and realizing you do not recognize yourself in any of it.
Oh, wow. That hits close to home.
You are generating value, you are performing the actions of a life, but it genuinely does not feel like your life. You are basically a ghost operating your own machinery.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I struggle with this concept personally because the modern application is so subtle.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not like there is an actual dictator standing over us, forcing us into these prepackaged lives.
Yeah.
We seem to be acting out a script someone else wrote, but we are doing it entirely voluntarily.
We do it voluntarily because the nature of power has completely shifted. The philosopher Michel Foucault provides the key to understanding this.
Oh, I love Foucault's take on this.
He theorized that modern society doesn't require a dictator or physical force to ensure compliance anymore. Instead, the system relies on constant, pervasive comparison.
Like social media and LinkedIn.
Exactly. Through mechanisms like social media, professional networking platforms, and just general cultural expectations, we internalize the gaze of society.
We basically become our own wardens. It's like we are walking around all day with a built-in invisible grading rubric that we didn't even write.
Yes, an invisible rubric. That's a perfect way to put it.
And we are constantly scoring ourselves against this invisible societal standard. Did I maximize my morning routine? Am I resting productively? Is my hobby monetizable?
It's exhausting just hearing it.
Right. We are constantly grading ourselves. And because the rubric is designed around impossible optimization, we always feel like we are failing. We feel immense pressure not just to survive, but to somehow live correctly.
And this internal surveillance is precisely why the gap between the true self and the world widens to the point of breaking.
Yeah.
You don't need external oppression when the pressure to conform is entirely inside your own head. You lose touch with your baseline desires because your cognitive load is totally consumed by anticipating and fulfilling the environment's expectations.
True.
You know exactly what you were doing at 9 a.m. on a Thursday, but you have completely forgotten why you were doing it, other than to avoid failing the invisible rubric.
You are just sprinting on a social treadmill, staring at a screen, and living on that treadmill inevitably leads to a structural failure.
It has to break eventually.
But it rarely culminates in a loud cinematic explosion where you flip your desk, throw your phone in a river, and run off into the woods.
As tempting as that sounds.
Right. It is usually a quiet, profound realization. The source text identifies this moment as the existential drop.
The existential drop is a defining, terrifying psychological event.
It really is.
It is the exact moment you fully realize that you are disconnected from your own existence. You are going through the motions, you are nodding in the meeting, you are laughing at the joke, you are making dinner, but internally, there is a massive cold distance between your consciousness and your physical actions.
Yeah, you are essentially observing your own life from the third person.
Exactly.
And when that drop happens, the sheer realization of your own freedom just hits you. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre framed this in a way that sounds almost paradoxical.
How so?
He stated that human beings are condemned to be free. His argument is that even doing absolutely nothing is still an act of choice.
You cannot hide from the responsibility of your own existence.
Exactly. Every single day you wake up and choose not to change your life, you are actively choosing the life you currently have.
It places an immense, suffocating weight squarely on your shoulders.
Yeah, it does.
Because once you strip away the societal script, once you see through Foucault's invisible grading rubric and realize it's entirely fabricated, you realize there is no preset meaning embedded in the universe.
Just a blank slate.
There is no guaranteed right answer to your life. You are completely, inescapably on the hook for every choice you make.
So what does this all mean? I really have to wrestle with Sartre's phrasing here. Why use the word condemned?
Strong word, for sure.
Yeah, because ultimate freedom is generally sold to us as the highest possible good. It's the goal, right? Why would the realization of total freedom be a condemnation?
Freedom becomes a condemnation when you realize it comes without a roadmap.
Oh, I see.
It is the deep anxiety of absolute possibility. If there are no universal rules and no preordained purpose handed down from above, then the question of existing transforms into a literal, cold calculation.
That sounds terrifying.
It leaves you entirely alone, weighing the heavy, exhausting awareness of having to invent your own meaning from scratch every single day.
Versus the alternative.
Exactly. Versus the alternative of simply not existing.
Wow. We are right back to that 2 a.m. question staring at the ceiling. If I didn't exist, would it be lighter?
We are. And Fyodor Dostoevsky explored the agony of this specific awareness brilliantly in his literature.
Dostoevsky is the master of the existential crisis.
He really is. He often wrote about characters who had all their basic physical needs met. They weren't starving, they weren't destitute, they weren't in physical pain.
But they were still miserable.
They suffered immensely. Why? Because their awareness was basically a disease. They saw the contradiction, the absurdity, and the fundamental emptiness of the social treadmill way too clearly.
Right.
Once you see the absurdity of the system, you cannot simply unsee it. You cannot force your brain back into a state of blissful, ignorant compliance.
You cannot unring the bell.
No, you can't.
It really brings to mind Friedrich Nietzsche's famous observation, when you look long enough into the abyss also looks into you.
Such a powerful quote.
You stare into that void of absolute meaninglessness, and it stares right back, aggressively stripping away all of your comforting illusions.
It forces you to face the raw, unpadded reality of your situation. There is no cosmic safety net. There's only you and the friction.
Okay, so we have hit the absolute bottom of the barrel here.
We went deep into the abyss.
We did. We have stared into it. We have recognized the grinding friction of the absurd. We realize society's grading rubric is a fabricated trap, and quite frankly, we are exhausted.
It's a lot to carry.
So the crucial question, the whole reason we are doing this deep dive is, how on earth do we keep going? And how do we do it with integrity?
Right.
Like, how do we survive this without lying to ourselves, without slapping on a fake, toxic positivity smile and pretending the void isn't right there?
This brings us to the most vital shift in the source material. It transitions from diagnosing the existential disease to offering a grounded, highly practical methodology for surviving it.
I am so ready for this part.
It completely rejects grand illusions. Instead, it offers a framework built on micro-meanings and stoic honesty.
I am absolutely fascinated by the concept of micro-meanings. The text references Dostoevsky again here, highlighting a very fragile, beautiful truth about human endurance.
What's the truth?
People rarely survive for grand, sweeping philosophical reasons. When you are in the middle of an existential drop, you do not stay alive to prove a sweeping point about the cosmos or to fulfill a historical destiny.
No, you really don't.
You survive for tiny, hyper-personal fragments of reality.
Yes. You survive for a deeply specific daily habit, a 15-minute conversation with a specific friend, the precise way the air smells right before it rains.
Exactly.
These are things that possess absolutely no statistical or grand historical value, but they're just enough to keep your consciousness tethered to the physical world for one more day.
Let's look at how that actually functions mechanically. Think of a massive, high-resolution digital billboard that has completely lost its power. It is just a massive wall of black, empty space. A micro-meaning isn't a surge of electricity that suddenly turns the whole image back on.
Right.
A micro-meaning is a single, isolated pixel that suddenly lights up in the bottom corner. It doesn't illuminate the entire screen, doesn't tell a complete story.
But it's there.
Yeah, that one tiny glowing dot proves that the circuit is still live. It breaks up the void. You don't need to write a symphony or cure a disease to justify your existence. Sometimes, genuinely, just deciding to brew a really good cup of coffee is the pixel that keeps the screen on.
I think the pixel analogy captures the mechanism perfectly. It is about proof of life, not grand illumination.
Right.
This raises an important question, though, which Nietzsche actually answered. He wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow."
People quote that all the time.
They do, but a common misinterpretation is that the why must be a massive, world-changing purpose. But the reality of human psychology is that the why can be entirely temporary.
Give me the coffee.
Exactly. It can be incredibly small. The scale of the meaning is totally irrelevant. Its authenticity to your internal experience is the only thing that matters.
The source actually aligns the survival tactic directly with the Stoic approach thinkers like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca.
The Stoics are great for this.
Their philosophy is beautifully brutal in its realism. You cannot control the grand, overarching meaning of the universe. You cannot control the fact that the modern environment is alienating or that the abyss is inherently terrifying.
Yeah.
But you retain absolute control over your physical and moral actions today, right now, in this exact hour.
The central Stoic question, in the face of the absurd, is, what does actual control look like when you feel internally empty?
And what's their answer?
It's highly practical. Do not attempt to save your entire life at once.
Oh, that's such a relief to hear.
Trying to solve the next 40 years of your existence when you are deeply exhausted is a recipe for complete paralysis.
Yeah.
Your only responsibility is to not betray yourself further today.
Wow, just today.
If you feel lost and empty, acknowledge it. But refuse to engage in the performative actions that you know will make you feel worse.
Right.
You might not possess a grand reason for living, but you can actively choose not to lie, not to run away into cheap distractions, and not to participate in the specific societal games that crush your spirit.
It is a practice in radical honesty. The text points out that Nietzsche defined a truly strong person, not as someone who is perpetually happy or someone who aggressively forces a positive mindset, but as someone who can simply endure the truth.
Enduring is the key.
Yeah, even when the truth is the quiet admission. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I am incredibly tired.
The victory condition changes completely here. The goal isn't to magically generate joy or suddenly discover an absolute, unwavering life purpose.
Which is what self-help books usually tell us to do.
Exactly, but that's fake. The real victory is found in the simple refusal to look away. It is looking directly at the absurdity of the situation, accepting that the friction is real, and yet choosing to remain in the room. Sartre would argue that simply continuing to exist in the face of a meaningless universe is, in and of itself, your ultimate act of rebellion. You are defying the void simply by taking up space.
You are actively choosing the heavy, complicated reality over the lighter, easier non-existence.
Right.
Just by getting out of bed, by lighting up that one tiny pixel and making your coffee, by doing that one honest thing today without demanding it solve your whole life, you are rebelling.
It's quiet, but it's powerful.
It is a heavy way to live, but I actually find a strange, profound comfort in it. It drastically lowers the stakes of existence. existence. You don't have to figure out the grand narrative, you just have to practice honesty today.
It is immensely comforting, precisely because it strips away the exhausting pressure of performance. You are no longer required to perform meaning for the benefit of the invisible rubric.
Just endurance.
Exactly. You're only required to practice endurance.
Well, as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's trace the path we just walked. We started by examining that heavy 2 a.m. feeling of existential exhaustion, the quiet whisper of, would it be lighter if I wasn't here?
We really unpacked that.
We did. We broke down the mechanics of our brains as engines desperate for meaning, and how modern society starves those engines by alienating us, forcing us onto a treadmill of constant self-surveillance and comparison.
We looked straight at the terrifying reality of Sartre's ultimate freedom and the paralyzing nature of Nietzsche's abyss.
We definitely didn't hold back. But we also didn't leave you stranded in the dark. We discovered that the methodology for surviving the drop isn't built on grand illusions or relentless positivity.
No, it's built on brutal stoic honesty.
Right. It is about finding those micro meanings, those single glowing pixels, and using them to anchor yourself in the present moment.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final reminder before we go. Feeling the crushing weight of the absurd is a sign of deep, authentic awareness.
It means you're awake.
The ultimate goal of life is not to reach a state where you never feel the pain of consciousness again. That is an impossible standard for anyone who is actually paying attention to reality.
True.
The true goal is to learn how to hold that pain, to look straight at it without blinking, and to deeply internalize that as long as you are still here, you possess agency. You have a choice in how you endure the micro moments.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over and perhaps experiment with on your own.
I like this.
Building on Foucault's concept of that invisible societal grading rubric we constantly carry around in our heads, the one telling us we need to be more productive, more impressive, more optimized. What if, for just the next 24 hours, you intentionally and completely dropped the rubric?
Wow. A conscious, total suspension of the societal script.
Yeah. Imagine waking up tomorrow knowing you do not have to justify your existence to society for one entire day. You don't have to earn your space. If that pressure was gone, what is the smallest, most insignificant thing you would choose to do simply because it proves you were here?
What is your single glowing pixel?
Exactly. Think about it tonight when the house finally goes quiet, the phone goes dark, and you find yourself staring up at that ceiling. See what comes to mind.